right. Shh. Hi, everyone. Hi. Hello. Hello. Good day to you. Good day. Welcome back. How's everyone doing? Good. I love teaching on Monday morning because everyone comes running in to talk about football. It's like college football and NFL, and this player's bad and this player's good. So everyone have a decent weekend? UT fans? No? No? No A&M fans okay? Yeah? BYU? BYU, wow. Let's see. Hopefully there are no Cowboys fans.
Yes, I am.
Sorry. Houston did okay. Is Clowney out for any period of time? Or? Oh, that's not good. That's not good. So the number one draft pick for the Texans is currently out for quarter of the season. It'll get worse. Greg Oden? Yeah. Okay. Well, first of all, I apologize. I kept you late on Wednesday because I totally forgot what time the class finished because I had a thing right afterwards, and I totally missed in my head when we finished. So I apologize. I usually don't do that deliberately, so I'll try not to do that again. It'll distract me, I guess. Hopefully some of you came to the event on Wednesday. A lot of you were there. Hope you enjoyed it. Let's see. What's on your mind? Any questions from last week? Any questions about anything we covered with body property, organ donations, organ markets, selling body parts? By the way, if you remember, there was actually a Houston Texan last year. This is relevant. Who tried to actually sell stocks in himself. Was it Arian Foster, I think? He actually tried to sell shares in himself, so we could actually invest. And if you buy shares in him, you'd actually then get a cut of his salary, depending how he does good or bad. The problem is he got injured, right? And he's out for what, the season or some period of time? Oh, he's playing now, okay. But he got injured very badly, so that entire thing went awry. But it's an interesting idea of actually buying shares in an athlete when they're young. Hopefully they do better, get a nice big contract increase, and then you can actually reap investments from that reward. But I don't know. It didn't work out too well. All right, any questions, anything else in your mind before we move on? Okay. All right, so today is going to be that's not what I want to do. Today is going to be a fun class because you're going to be taught a metaphor that law students have been using for hundreds and hundreds of years, or maybe 200 years. It's called the bundle of sticks, okay? The reason why this metaphor is so useful is that it's very difficult to define the phrase property. I think I told you at the beginning, I'm not going to tell you what property is until like maybe 3 or 4 weeks in. The reason why is that there's no one definition of the word property. It's used to refer to so many different things, which you should probably could have told, because in this class we've already been talking about foxes and organs and whales and everything else. We haven't even talked about land yet. We'll get to that in a week or two. Okay? But the idea of the bundle of sticks is meant to represent that property is not one thing. It's a bunch of things tied together. And I will use markers because these are here and they're actually quite useful for this purpose, okay? When we speak of property, we speak of different types of rights. And we've already discussed a couple of these throughout the course of the year, and this is actually a decent place to review, okay? Let's talk about the case we did just last week with the body donations. Is that Phil? Phil? No, who are you? Me? Yeah. Andrew, you're not in the right seat. I don't know, but you're not there. Come up. Okay, then you never signed the chart then. Okay, so Phil, you're up first. Phil, let's talk about Andrew. Okay, Andrew. Andrew, let's talk about the case we had last week, the body donation case, the organ, the cell case, right? Yeah, Board of Regents, right? What was Mr. Moore's main gripe? What was his main problem with what the school did? Okay, so they used his body. I'm going to write your name, and Andrew, so this is where you sit now. Okay, Andrew. Okay, got it. Okay, so the problem in the Moore case was that they were using his cells without his permission, right? Okay. Had Mr. Moore had his way, what would he have told them? What would he have told them? If you could have gone back to square one, what would Moore have told the doctors? If he knew what would happen?
He probably would have asked if they were going to use his cells for like he did.
Good, and they said, yeah, we're going to use your cells for research. What do you think Moore would have said?
He probably would have consented.
He would not have consented.
He would have wanted part of it.
Okay.
Along those lines.
Okay, so you just had two things. Okay, so first, okay, that's good. So is that, yeah? Which is that the one?
That's one right here. This is James Hicks.
James. Okay, you're not the. Okay, James. Okay, so James. For some reason the chart's not even updated. Okay, so James. So he said two important things, right? One, say he said we want to use your cells, we won't give you a penny, right? What would Moore have said to that?
He said, he would probably said,
He would have said no, scram, right? Okay, two. What if they said to him, okay, we'll use your cells and we'll give you a cut of it. We'll give you a percentage of our profits. What do you think he would have said?
What percentage?
Yeah, and they said, 10%, 20%. What do you think he would have said then?
Not enough to myself.
50%.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can use it, right? All right, so you just, yeah, you negotiate enough, right? So you just, I think, hit on two different elements of property, right? The first one is what I call a right to use, right? If you give me enough money, right, you can use my cells. 50%, 90%, whatever he's negotiating for, right? But you also hit on a different asset or different facet of property, which is what's often called a right to exclude. That is, if I tell you I want to use your cells and I'm not going to give you a damn penny for it, you say scram. Go away. You can't use my cells. Right? Within property, these are the core elements, right? Letting someone use your property, whether it's land or cells or whatever it's going to be, or my right to exclude. Say, get off my damn lawn, right? You kids get off my lawn, right? That's good. Old people always say, get off my lawn. To exclude someone from your property. Okay. Let's take another one. Let's say, for example, that's Juan, right? So Juan, let's use a different example. Let's say instead of the doctor discovering this after done cells, say Mr. Moore knows that he has really good cells, and he doesn't go to the doctors. What might Mr. Moore say in that case?
They started profiting.
Yeah. And what would he do with his own cells?
Try to sell them.
Yeah, sell them, right? So in addition to the right to use and the right to exclude, you have a right to sell, right? I can individually sell my land. I can maybe let someone else use my cells and they can give me a cut of it, or I can sell it myself. Okay? And that's Ava? Ava, what happens if he realizes that his cells are worthless and he has all these cells lying around? Do you think you'll let the doctors keep them? And what are the doctors going to do with these worthless cells? Yeah, dispose them, throw them out, right? So you have like a right to dispose, right? All of these elements I've just listed are different facets of property. And this came up in the opinion. Under our law, you may have the right to do some of these things, but not all of these things. Right? So is that Elizabeth? Elizabeth, under the law as it existed in California, was Mr. Moore allowed to sell his cells? That's right. Was he allowed to dispose of them and get rid of them? Say it louder?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So you're allowed to throw them away and get rid of them and make no profit, even though someone else might profit from them. But you're not allowed to sell it yourself. Okay? Sonia? Sonia, are you allowed under California law to exclude someone from using your cells?
Yes.
Ah, how do you exclude someone from using your cells?
You don't give them the right to use it.
Yes, you don't sign the consent. Remember, you kept signing yes in the consent, you kept signing yes, and then suddenly you said, oh no, never mind. Just kidding, right? Okay. All right, so you can exclude people from using your cells. Is that Jason?
Yes.
Jason, can you give someone the right to use your cells under California law?
Yes.
Okay, but what's the limitation on that one? What can't you get from it?
Money.
You can't get paid. So you have this right to let someone use your land or use your cells, interchangeably, but you can't put any financial conditions on it. Right? We speak of all these different rights as bundles, as sticks in a bundle. We have to be able to separate them. Because when you're dealing with a piece of land, say if you own a piece of land, Eddie? So say if you own a piece of land, can you use it however you want? Pretty much, within the law, right? Could you exclude people from your land? Within the law. We'll see. Can you sell the land? You can get rid of it if you want, give it away, whatever you want, right? Okay. Depending on what we're talking about, you're going to have more or less sticks in your bundle. If you own a piece of land, and Eddie used the word title, I'm not going to use that word yet, but if you own a piece of land and you own the entire thing, you have it free and clear, right? You have all of the sticks in your bundle. You have the right to use, the right to exclude, the right to sell, the right to dispose, whatever you want to do, right? But let's talk about something else. Let's talk about your own body cells. You know, what perhaps most embodies, no pun intended, who you are. You don't have all of the sticks. You can't sell it, right? So one of the sticks in the bundle has just been taken away from you. You still have a bundle. You can still use them. You can still exclude them. But you don't have everything. The reason why this is an important element of property is it helps us to separate all the different facets of what we can do with our land. Right? Property is not just one big thing. I don't own a piece of property. On a piece of land, I have some sticks. I can sell it, I can use it, I can exclude it. Let's use another example. Is that Catherine?
Yes, sir.
Catherine, you ever signed a lease for an apartment? Okay. When you sign a lease, can you sell it? Mm-mm. Can you dispose of it? Can you use it? Yeah, use it. Can you exclude people from it? You might not be able to keep your landlord out. But here's a good example, right? When you lease something, you're not like Eddie. You're not buying it free and clear. You're only getting some of the sticks in the bundle for a limited period of time. Another element is those sticks have a time frame on it. So maybe with a period of 1 year, you have the exclusive use of that apartment. You have 1 year. Can you sell it? No. So that stick is taken out of your bundle. Right? Elise, have you ever had a roommate? When you have a roommate, can you exclude your roommate from the apartment? No, you can't. How come? They're on the lease. Okay, so if you sign a lease and you have a roommate, meaning 2 people sign the lease, you've now just given away part of your right to exclude. You can exclude anyone else in the world, but you can't kick your roommate out of the room. Right? These are simple things we think about on a daily basis, but they represent different facets or elements of what property means. You only have a certain number of sticks. When you acquire a piece of land, or you sign a lease, or whatever you do, you agree, okay, I'll take the right to use stick, but I'll give away my right to exclude stick because then my roommate has to be with me, and I agree I won't sell it. Everyone see that? We'll keep coming back to this bundle imagery over and over and over again this year, I promise. So if you don't fully grasp it now, don't worry too much about it. But I think you'll get a good flavor for it throughout the year. Now let's think of a couple other examples we've done throughout the year. Is that Christian?
Yes.
Christian, in the INSVAP case, this was the case with the newspapers, right? Which stick in this bundle were they trying to enforce? Think about it. The Associated Press, what were they trying to do to INS? Exclude. Explain more. That's right.
The use of news, that means information, exclude other
Yes.
newspapers from getting.
Exactly. So the newspaper AP, they put, remember the headlines in the bulletin board? And the other guys came up and copied them off the bulletin board? They wanted to exclude them from doing this. Now, they didn't mean to physically exclude, like put up a wall in front of the bulletin board. They wanted to legally exclude them from using these headlines. And the court agreed with them. If you remember, the court actually said that AP has a property right. They have a stick. What the court said was, we have the right to exclude legally INS from copying the news stories. Remember that? Okay. Is that Eric?
Yes.
Eric, let's talk about Vanna White. What stick was Vanna trying to fight for? What? I'm sorry?
Her right to sell and use her own image,
What was she trying to stop Samsung from doing?
using her persona or identity.
So was she allowing them to use them or not? Excluding. Ah, thank you. You have to get there a couple steps. Excluding, right? Vanna White, remember the commercial with the Wheel of Fortune robot, right? Vanna White was trying to exclude Samsung from making this commercial. She was trying to exclude them from her image. Okay? Let's talk about, Brian, let's talk about the duck case. Remember the hunting duck case where the jerk next door was firing his duck right when they're about to go for the ducks? What was he trying to do? Which right was he trying to vindicate?
I guess it would have to be right to. It has to be right to exclude.
Exclude. You're sensing a pattern here, right?
Yeah, right.
No, you're right. You're sensing a pattern. The right to exclude. He wanted to exclude the neighbor from blowing up, those guns right next to his apartment. Okay. Allison, this is not a trick question. I think of Pearson v. Post, the fox hunting case, right? You have the hunter running after the fox and chasing him with the dogs and everything, and he's just about to get him, and then the jerk swoops in, right? And takes the fox. What's the hunter trying to vindicate? Which stick is he trying to vindicate or fight for? It's not a trick question. Exclude. Yes, he's trying to keep the jerk away from the fox. Are you sensing a pattern here? Okay. In property, the most essential stick in the bundle, the most important stick in the bundle is the right to exclude. The Supreme Court has said this almost verbatim. You'll see it in a case called Keisner-Aetna. The most essential stick in our bundle is the right to exclude others. This concept is so deeply ingrained, right, in our system of property that almost every case starts from the presumption that if I own something, I own a piece of land, I can exclude whomever the hell I want. If I don't want you on my land, scram. If I don't want you driving your tractor trailer across my field in the middle of the snow, too damn bad. If I don't want you knocking on my door and coming in, go away. I've studied in criminal law something called the castle doctrine, right? You're the king of your own castle, right? This is effectively where it comes from in a property perspective. You own your castle, and you can exclude whomever you want. This was a very deeply rooted element of our property system. Okay? Everyone get that? Right to exclude, really important. Big deal. Okay? So let's write these out a little bit more clearly. So often it's viewed in terms of a few different ways. I'll give you the formal term. So there's a right to include, which is sometimes called permitted. That is, I permit someone onto my land. That's the opposite of the right to exclude, to deny someone on your land. Right? Either I can let people in, or I can let people out. Okay? I'll give you a third one, which is called the right to transfer. this is often called alienability. You may not have seen this word alienability before, but it means being able to transfer. Like alien means to move from one place to another, right? Alienability means you can transfer something. And generally speaking, the law presumes that land is alienable, that land can be transferred. Okay. These are among the 3 most essential sticks in the bundle. So we talked a lot about the right to exclude. Let's try to think of what it would mean to not have a right to include. Okay? Is that Ashley? So Ashley, we talked a lot about the Johnson versus McIntosh case. That was the Indian case, right? Remember the Indians were not allowed to sell their land, right? Which sticks in the bundle do the Indians retain?
They, if I remember correctly, they were just allowed to live there, but they didn't have the right to exclude. They didn't have like property, like ownership of it, so they couldn't sell it.
Okay, good.
So
you're good. Okay, that's right. No, so there's a 4th one, right, which is often called a right to use the land, right? The Indians, in that Johnson case, the only thing they were allowed to do was to use their land. Remember, they were allowed to farm on it or hunt or whatever. Could they include others and let people onto the land, Ashley? Were they allowed to invite others onto their land?
I think they were.
It's actually a little bit unclear, and I'll give you a better example in a minute, okay? Is that Jacqueline?
Yeah.
Were they allowed to exclude people from the land? Could they keep out the white settlers who lives in that area?
I don't think so.
No, they couldn't. Could they transfer it? Could they sell it? They couldn't. All they were allowed to do was use it. So let me give you a better example, and I kind of dodged Ashley's question before, but the right to include. There's a case called Worcester versus Georgia. This is a case involving Indians from Georgia. And it's actually a really sad case. In Georgia, a lot of the missionaries started to help out the Indians to try and make sure they weren't being taken advantage of, give them medical attention, provide education on their land. Okay? Georgia didn't like that anyone was helping the Indians, so what did Georgia do? They passed a law that banned anyone who wasn't a member of the tribe from entering the land. Think about that for a second. They actually banned the missionaries from entering this land. Even though the Indians wanted to include these people onto their property, they were not allowed to. Effectively, Georgia removed their right to include, their right to exclude, and their right to sell. They didn't have much left out. I got an empty palm. I don't have enough markers, but they didn't really have enough left, right? So what Georgia did was they killed their right to include. If you can't decide who goes onto your land, you can't decide who stays off your land, and you can't sell it, you have a very thin bundle. You have just a limited right to use, if that, which could really be taken away at any time. Everyone see that? That was a Supreme Court case. It was resolved on non-property grounds because the Supreme Court, by Justice John Marshall, said that Indian law was a matter for Congress, not for the states. And the states can't regulate affairs over the Indians. This was a famous case where President Andrew Jackson said, he didn't actually say it, but John Marshall made his ruling, now let him go enforce it. He never said that because the ruling was against the state of Georgia, it had nothing to do with the federal government. But it's a very famous quote which is misrepeated all the time. Okay? So you see, in order to have any meaningful sense of property, at the minimum, you have to have these 4, right? You need to be able to include someone, exclude someone, transfer it as needed, and actually use the land. If you're missing any of these sticks, you have a very weak claim to property. But the most important is number 2, and I'll put a star next to it, right? That by far is the most important. Because if you can't exclude someone from your land, you have no claims for trespass. Right? If someone comes onto your land, you call the police and you say trespass and they arrest this person. But if you can't exclude someone and you call the cops, they say, well, he can do whatever he wants. That's not a very secure property at all. Okay. Everyone see that? Any questions on this? Yes, ma'am.
Selling and disposing are subcategories of the right to transfer?
Pretty much.
Okay, and is disposing also gifting, or is that
Yeah, close enough.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's not exactly the same, but for our purposes, gifting, disposing, it's also all about transferring different methods. Because there are actually examples, and this was mentioned in the case last week, where you can gift something, but you can't sell it. For example, any hunters in the room, if you hunt some game, you can actually give that game away, but you can't sell it for a profit. You know about this? How's it work in Texas? What are the rules?
For example, if I get my bag limit, like if my buddy doesn't, I sign a piece of paper saying I give my doves over to him.
Mm-hmm.
The game warden will agree with that.
But you can't sell it. Now, what if he buys you some beers afterwards for that?
What's that?
If he buys you a beer afterwards for that, then you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Right. So it's very specific. So in the example of hunting doves, you have the right to gift, but you don't have the right to sell. So even within this transferability, there are many sub-layers. Yes, ma'am.
Is that kind of like the cells too? And you could give them the right.
Yes,
to-
exactly. You can donate your cells for science research, but you can't sell them for a profit. Exactly right. Yes, sir.
You can sell a trophy of the animal once it's been like cleaned
And stuffed?
Yeah.
Ah, interesting. I wonder why that is.
It's the food restriction.
Oh, because
Like
you.
cattle and stuff like that go through approval to
Ah.
be consumed, whereas
Ah,
your game doesn't go through any approval.
interesting. Interesting. Okay, I didn't know that. What else? Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
What distinction property that can be given away but not sold, as opposed to a property that can be sold
So who makes?
and given? Like what?
So who? Okay, good question. And this was the issue in our case last week. Who decides how to structure the bundles of sticks? Well, he just mentioned there was some Texas gaming law, right? Who makes that decision? The government. Yeah. I don't know exactly. Maybe there's a hunting board or something. I don't know exactly how that works. But some element of our Texas state government made the decision that we will allow people to give away doves, but not sell them, right? Why do you think that is? Why do you think that decision was made? And you also know anything about hunting, but why? What reasonings do you think could have existed for differentiating and taking that stick out of the bundle?
I've never hunted anything.
Neither have I. All right, Hunter. Yeah. Eric, I think you said before. Why didn't the Texas state legislature made that decision that you can give away, but you can't sell the game?
Well, because I'm assuming basically if you made it a for-profit without regulation, there's a greater harm to the potential community.
To the what community?
The people, the citizens.
Ah.
That might.
Okay. So I think we're back at Pearson v. Post, aren't we? What's our incentive? Our incentive is to promote hunting, right? We want to structure the law in a way to actually encourage people to hunt for themselves. We don't want to structure the law in a way that just results in the mass slaughter of animals. This is Pearson v. Post, the dissent. The dissent says we should be encouraging hunters, right? We should be encouraging hunters. We should not be encouraging these jerks who just come in and just kill the animals and throws them away. So our government made a decision that we want to encourage a certain public policy, and they developed a property law that matches it. Because you can imagine a different property law that says, yeah, you can sell them for whatever profit you want. You'd imagine you have a lot of hunters that just shoot everything they see and sell it for profit. And that's a totally different societal expectation. We want to encourage hunting. Catherine, does that make sense?
Yes, I understand that encourage hunting, but I don't understand that it applies to the cells.
Well, let's go back to the cells case. The justices allude to this. The idea of using cells is a fairly novel concept, right? At the time, did the California legislature actually speak to this issue of using cells in this issue? Have they passed a law about this? The answer is no. Yeah, the answer is no. This was a brand new technology, and the California legislature hadn't done it yet, right? So in a matter of first impression, a new issue, who should be deciding how we structure these property rights? The courts or the legislature? Well, you can answer that question for yourself, but the majority of the California Supreme Court said, we're going to back off here, right? We're not going to do this. We're not going to inject the courts into this very difficult circumstances, moral issues, or philosophical issues. Let the legislature do this, right? Let the legislature figure out the best way of doing it. Should we be encouraging the sale, whatever? Not us. The dissent said, to the contrary, the dissent said, this guy already got screwed over, right? Let the California legislature do what they want to do, but let's make this guy whole. He's already been hurt. He's already been taken advantage of. Let's give him a remedy, and then they can go fix it afterwards. These are very different approaches to judging. What should the legislature do? Should the courts step in these situations? Not an easy question. Not an easy question. But I encourage you to think about it and grapple with it. All right, other questions? Anything else? Okay. All right, let's move on. Is that Calvin?
Yes.
Calvin, all right, so tell me, what happened in the Jacque v. Steenberg Holmes case?
Jacque owns the property,
Uh-huh.
and I think it was Mr. and Mrs.
Mm-hmm.
And the people of Steenberg, they had to move a house. And they
Mobile home, as we call them, right? We don't say trailer anymore, we say a mobile home.
and they went to negotiate with Jacque.
Uh-huh.
Jacque apparently had an unpleasant previous experience with allowing someone on his land.
That's right.
They told him no way.
Yeah.
He offered him money. He's like, no amount of money is going to do it.
Yep.
And Steenberg basically says, hey, move the house across his land.
Do it anyway.
Yeah, did damage to it.
Okay. Well, unclear if there are any damages, but he did run the
Yeah, left a trail.
Okay. Okay. We'll get back. Okay. So very good. Thank you, Calvin. All right. So here's what happened. Right. This is a case that illustrates the right to exclude stick. Right. So the facts are, Steenberg needs to move a mobile home, and you've seen these before on these long flatbeds. You've seen these on the highway. These are like 30, 40 long. I mean, these are really long trucks, right? And it's the middle of Wisconsin, in the middle of the winter, and he needs to get it across a certain area. Now, there's two ways of going. There is a public road, but the problem with the public road is that's filled with like what, 7 feet of snow, and they would need to put these rollers on the side to kind of get along the bank. Not a feasible track. The other option is a lot simpler. They can drive their tractor trailer across the land owned by the Jacque family, Mr. and Mrs. Jacque. Jacques, French, whatever. We're in Texas. We say Fort Dyer here. Okay. So the Steenberg goes to Jacque and says, hey, can we bring our trailer across your land? It'll be a lot easier for you. And the Jacque says, scram, right? Red stick, right? I exclude you. Do not enter. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200, right? Keep out. Okay. So then Steenberg comes back and says, oh, all right, we'll pay you, right? We'll pay you for the use of your land so we can drive across it. And this might make you think of, remember we did the negotiating with the Coase theorem, and you have the tall building with the sunshine. In a normal world, right, in a normal world, the Jacque said, okay, sure, pay me, whatever the cost of the damage to the land would be plus some extra money, right? So maybe say I have to resod part of the grass, which probably won't even happen because it's in the winter. Pay me that, and then pay me something else. So in a normal world, that's what would happen. But people have this red stick. They have this right to exclude. And the case mentions that previously they had gotten screwed over. They had let people onto their land. And you'll do something called adverse possession next semester. But adverse possession refers to squatting, which you probably have heard of. If I stay on your land for 10 years and you know about it and you don't kick me off, after 10 years that land's now mine. Everyone knows about this, right? If I'm on your land for 10 years and you know about it and you do nothing to throw me off, that becomes my property. So it seems that Jacques had actually lost some land to squatters. So perhaps they were nice and let people onto their land or mistaken. They lost it. So the Jacques were like, you know what? No amount of money. I don't give a damn. There's no way you're getting across my land. Use the damn road. I don't care how much it costs you. Okay. So then the manager says, screw these guys. We're bringing it home. We're going to do it anyway. And they drive straight across their land. They plowed through the field. Okay. Jonathan, before you get too far, just go back to a point that Calvin made. Was there actually any damages to the land? What were the actual damages awarded? Not the penalties, but the actual damages. Yeah, what does that mean? What's nominal damages? What was the amount? What was the amount awarded? $1. Sorry, so everyone knows what that means when you have a judgment for $1, right? That's what Jonathan said. It's called nominal damages, right? What are nominal damages? There are none, right? This is just enough to actually show that someone was at fault. So it's not clear there actually were any damages. Perhaps usually a trailer driving across the snow maybe hurt the grass, maybe didn't. We don't know, but I'm guessing the answer is probably not. Anyway, so going back to the facts. The guy drove across. The Jacques go crazy. They call the cops. The cops come, and they issue a $30, citation, a fine. And I'm sure the trucker's going, ha ha ha. We pay these $30, and then we can deliver the house for whatever amount. Okay. Okay, but then the Jacques go to court, right? So, Arib, what happens? What happens in court?
Well, they're talking about the Court of Appeals or the District Court.
The trial court, yeah.
Yeah. The trial court says that the jury awarded them $100,000 in punitive damages, and then
how much?
$100,000.
$100,000, yeah. So we have $1 in nominal damages, right? But $100,000 in punitive damages. Lou, what are punitive damages? What are those awarded for?
They're to punish people for what they did and possibly deter them or other people.
Exactly. Right. Exactly. Punitive damages have a couple purposes, right? Puny, like punish, right? It's first to punish someone for very bad conduct. Remember, gross or wanton conduct. You remember those words from torts, probably. But Lou made the other point, which is right. It's to deter other conduct, right? These jurors, who probably came from the same neighborhood as the Jacques couple, were trying to send a message, right? Alex, what was the message they were trying to send? What was the message these jurors were trying to send with this $100,000 punitive damage award? What were they trying to convey?
That it wasn't right what he did. Did it kind of, I don't want to say balance, but
Tell me the answer in terms of the bundle of sticks. What message are they trying to send?
I guess right to exclude.
Yes. They were trying to say that the right to exclude is really important. It's so important that even if you drive your trailer across and inflict zero damages, no harm to the person, the mere fact that you did this is worth $100. And we don't know this, but I'm guessing a lot of the jurors were perhaps farmers also, who had land in the same area. And they were probably thinking, I don't want this jerk driving his trailer across my property. I don't want this jerk driving his trailer across my grandmother's property. So we're going to put in a seriously large damage award to discourage this from happening again. We are sending a message. This red stick, this right to exclude, is really significant. Everyone see that? Punitive damages are trying to send a clear message. Don't do this. And I'm sure all the other trailer park companies in the area said, okay, from now on, we won't do this again, because that $100,000 is probably worth a lot more than the house was worth. Okay, so for a question, I wonder if nominal damage was ever less than $1 back in the day, when $1 is worth more. One interesting thing, if you ever turn to the 7th Amendment of the Constitution, which I hope you've all done, The 7th Amendment provides the right to jury trial, right? But you know, there's a dollar amount in there. It says, in suits of common law with a value in controversy shall exceed $20. So in 1787, when they wrote the Constitution, they put the $20 limit into the 7th Amendment. Okay, I haven't done the math. Maybe someone can do it. But I think $20 back in 1787 was worth, your Constitution's awesome. $20 was worth a lot more back in the 1780s than it was today. But it's funny they put these dollar amounts as these things. But it could be $1, it could be $5, whatever. Okay? All right. Everyone with me so far? All right, so, and then Maria, what happened then on appeal? Floor? Not unconstitutional, but the Court of Appeals, the Intermediate Court, they set aside the punitive damage awards, right? Okay, but then Floor, what did the Supreme Court do? Or actually, I'll go back. Maria, what did the Supreme Court do in the final decision?
They took away the punitive damages. They just left them.
No, that's what the Court of Appeals did. What did the Supreme Court do? This is the decision we're reading. Matthew?
Oh, they put the punitive damage back
Okay, why?
because they wanted to deter anyone from doing that again.
Okay, good. So the Supreme Court reinstated the punitive damages awards. They said the punitive damages were correct. But they did more than that. They actually explained why the punitive damages were actually proper. Jordan, why did the court say the punitive damages were actually proper in this case?
Because the purpose was to deter.
More than that, let's talk about the property rights. What was so significant about Jacque's right to exclude?
Because it's their, I know it's their property, but
From the opinion, what did the court say?
they said that the right to exclude others from property is the most essential property right of everything.
Okay, good. They actually quote the Supreme Court case called Keisner Aetna v. USA. Okay? This decision says, quote, one of the most essential sticks in the bundle of rights that are commonly characterized as property is the right to exclude. The right to exclude is the most essential stick in the bundle. Right there from the Supreme Court. Okay? Rachel, why does the court say this is the most essential stick? Why is this so important to protect?
I think because if you don't have the right to exclude someone from your property, then how can you really have, the right of property at all?
That's good. You're on the right track. Elaborate more.
Well, you have a right to, I guess, enjoy your own property as long as you don't invade other people's rights. I don't know. I understand what.
Let me ask you like this.
I don't know why that's the most important one.
Okay, so let's say like this. Say you had all the other sticks, right? You have the right to use it. You have the right to sell it. But you couldn't exclude people from it.
Wouldn't that infringe on your other rights?
Ah, exactly. Exactly. If you don't have the right to exclude, will anyone buy it from you? Why would anyone buy a piece of land that's open to the commons? Right? If you don't have the right to exclude, can you use it? No, because you have other people on your land doing stuff, right? If you don't have the right to exclude, can you charge people admission? No. Right? Say you want to charge the right to admit people. Say you had a ticket booth. You had to charge people to enter. Without the right to exclude, all these other sticks fall apart very quickly. You can't use it because other people are there. You can't sell it. Why would anyone buy it if they can go there for free? And you can't decide who enters because people can come on anyway. This is why it's the most essential stick in the bundle. The court says this right has no practical meaning unless it's protected by the state. Unless the state protects it, there's no meaning. So Eric, does the $1 nominal damage award protect this right?
I don't believe so.
How come?
It's just too nominal. It's no.
Yeah, it's too nominal, right? Yeah, it's too
not-
low.
I mean, because basically what the guy did is he just decided, well, I'll take, you know, a small fine or something like that. I'll save loads of labor and costs and just shoot across this guy's
Exactly. He thought he would pay a small fine and be done with it, right? In order to protect this, you need something more than nominal damages. In other words, when we're talking about the value of the right to exclude, we're not just talking about the damage to the land. You know, your tractor trailer drove and left skid marks on the grass. We're talking about the value, the injury to the property itself, right? What does it to your bundle of sticks? The court says that the society has an interest in punishing these trespassers, right? Beyond this particular case. In other words, this isn't just about the Jacques and their tractor trailer grass. This is about protecting property rights greater. It's about deterring trespass and sending a clear message that this will not fly. Okay, everyone get the whole thing? Everyone get the opinion? Everyone get that? Yeah? All right, Carson, what do you think about this case?
Just in general?
Yeah, what was your reaction when you read it? It was fairly short. What was your reaction?
I think that the amount of the punitive damages is probably really high. They obviously probably put it in that court with all the farmers, like you said, because they were going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But still, the right to exclude someone who's going to trespass on your property intentionally is obviously really important to protect your other rights, like you said, because anyone could come in and live on your property if they wanted to without that right to exclude. They could use it the way they wanted to without that right to exclude. So it makes sense that there's all this infringement on your right to, or your other rights if you don't have the right to exclude.
So you generally support the decision?
I support the decision. I just think the damages were a little much.
Okay. Is that Nick? Mm-hmm. Nick, what was your reaction when you read this decision? What do you think?
Well, they said, the court says that when landowners have confidence in their legal system, they're less likely to resort to self-help remedies. So I thought that there's a lot of truth to that statement.
So what would the self-help look like in this case?
You could go burn down their, attack them physically, or
Burn them down. I was thinking slashing tires. Jeez, I don't want to piss this guy off. But okay, everyone knows self-help means you take the law into your own hand. Yeah, they could slash a guy's tires, right? And it's like, you're on my land. Ha. I'm gonna stand my ground, so to speak. All right. Let's think another way. Marcel, should this case have even gone to trial? We're talking about no damages. No, there was no harm to him at all. Why did this case even go to trial? I mean, should this case have just been dismissed as saying, you know, there was nothing actually done here?
I mean, trespass is trespass. He put tracks in the snow. Maybe he liked the way it's feel.
Okay.
With a blanket of snow. I know you guys from Texas never seen that, but
that's a good point. People have never seen snow. When you have a lot of snow and you drive on it, it's packed thick. It doesn't actually leave a mark, or if it does, it leaves a very small mark. The only thing that makes a mark on snow is dogs, and you'll know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about, right? Yellow. Thank you. People from the yellow snow. You know what we're talking about. It's the only thing that stays. But this case can be seen a little bit silly, right? On the one hand, you've just hit this company with $100,000 of damages for something that left absolutely no damage. On the other hand, if we take seriously what the Supreme Court says, and this red stick, this right to exclude, is most important, then this judgment is absolutely correct. This case really stands for the proposition, right, that the right to exclude is absolute. That you can keep someone off your land for any reason, and if they trespass, you hit them hard with damages. this case means, this right to exclude means you can exclude whoever the hell you want from your land.
So I was thinking about Bush v. Gore, and how, no, just kidding, not Bush v. Gore. Gore v. BMW? That's what it is.
BMW v. Gore.
Yeah. And that's the one that said punitive damages generally aren't really okay if they're more than if there is, unless they're a single digit. Like, how does that apply to nominal damages? Now that is the
don't do Bush BMW v. Gore. That's a due process case, which you do that in torts, I'm guessing?
I can't remember.
You did BMW or common law? Okay, then that's a. You already did that in common law? Wow. That's a due process case. It's actually the impact of the case is actually surprisingly unclear. The Supreme Court has hinted that there are constitutional limitations on punitive damages, but that hasn't been a clear holding. Okay. So the impact of BMW v. Gore is actually quite limited. The court only hinted. There was another case involving the Exxon Valdez spill in Alaska 5 or 6 years ago, where the court also hinted that there are limits on punitive damages, but that was under federal maritime law. So don't worry about that here.
Okay, so
Not relevant. Okay, but thank you. Let's see other questions. Let's see a show of hands. Who here thinks that first that this case is correct, that this right to exclude is important, and there's really not much balancing to be done about the nature of the harm, that you just slam them with damages? So show of hands. Oh, okay, so virtually anyone want to defend the other side? Anyone thought this case was ridiculous, and that from a perspective of societal, welfare, there's no reason why the Jacques have been so unreasonable and that you have let these people drive onto their land? Okay, Ashley, defend it.
I think the whole case would have been avoided if they had come to some agreement with each other, somebody that offered money, that offered money, the Jacques accepted it, and they could have come to an agreement.
But they did offer money, and the Jacques said no amount of money will work.
I know that.
So should the court say you had your chance, too bad? How come? Why should the court say that? Whose stick is it to give away, though? If I may, whose stick is it to give away? Is it the Jacques stick to give away, or do the Steenbergs have the right to accept that stick?
But I understand that the right to exclude is important.
Uh-huh.
I think that they talk about imposing or imposing on other people's rights. You're excluding to the point where you're keeping them from
Ah. So you would consider the greater social welfare when you're deciding this right to exclude stick. Like, how do other people benefit from this? Mm-hmm. Okay. I mean, so is the question, right, is this right of the trucking company in Wisconsin more important than the right to trespass? Or should there be a balance? Eddie, is your hand up?
Do you have other legal recourse prior to this if they were refused by the landowners?
Like what?
I'm not sure.
Eddie, if they had gone to court saying, we want a right to cross over this person's land, the court would have laughed at them, saying, there's a road. Go take the road.
If there hadn't been a road, they would have to provide access, correct, by most states?
So generally speaking, the state would have to use the power of eminent domain to condemn their land, right? So in the event that there is actually some piece of landlocked law, some place is landlocked and can't be obtained, the state can actually use the power of eminent domain to actually condemn it to build a road. But that wouldn't give the right to a private person to trespass. So the state could have built a road, but that's not what happened. So actually the answer is probably yes. So the question is, could you shoot at the truck? So okay, let me be precise. You can use lethal force to defense of property, right? So if a person is unlawfully on your land and they're stealing your property, you can use lethal force. And that's not just Texas castle doctrine. That's actually pretty common self-defense law. Anyway, I saw a hand over there somewhere. Yeah, in the back?
How can a private organization gain access by using it?
They can't. Or, well, you'll learn a property too, that private organizations can give lots of donations to the town hall, the city council, say, hey, we really want that land. So the quintessential case is something called Kelo v. City of New London. Okay, you'll do this in property too. Kelo v. City of New London. In this case, Pfizer was a huge corporation. They wanted to build a research facility in New London, Connecticut. And the only problem was someone's house was standing in the way. So they actually said, hey, New London, if you guys seize this land and condemn it, we'll build a factory there. So the city said, oh, great, jobs. So they basically took Suzette Kelo's little pink house, condemned it, and then they basically said, okay, Pfizer, go build. Well, the problem was that by that time, Pfizer was no longer interested in using the land, and the land's still vacant 8 years later. You'll do that in property, too. So I like the way you're looking at it. You're looking at the perspective of the trucking company, right? The law doesn't give a damn about him, right? So you're looking at it from what are the point of view of the homeowner and what's the point of view of the truck company, right? And maybe do some sort of balancing between them, right? The law says red stick. That's it. We were only looking at the perspective of the property owner. Done. Case closed. But I asked for a show of hands, and I think like everyone, or maybe like 3 people, didn't raise their hands. Now, all right, let's go back up to Mario. Did the second case we read today change, perhaps, your opinion on the first case, the State v. Jacque case? Did that impact your opinion at all?
No, not at all. I think it's pretty different.
Okay, tell me why.
One is arguing this succession, the employment of property, and the other one is arguing that you don't have a worker that has a government agency entitled to that protection, or the agency. That's a big difference, I think. So you take the kind of property, can't use it right.
Why is it different?
Sorry?
Why is it different? If you have a right to exclude a trucking company, why can't you exclude some sort of legal aid?
In that first case, they say that as long as it doesn't invade the rights of another, then you can go ahead and exclude others. One's excluding someone's personal rights, right? One's excluding someone just trying to make profit.
Well, now you seem to be arguing from Ash's perspective that we consider not just the rights of the property owner, but the right of everyone altogether, right? So before we get to the facts of this case, and we'll get there in a minute, right? What's our perspective when we talk about property law? Are we only considering the red stick of the owner, or are we considering the welfare of perhaps people who are on land? We're considering the mission of these they're not quite governmental agents, but they're quasi-governmental people trying to help these people. They're like legal aid lawyers, right? They're funded by Congress, but they aren't government officials. What's our property perspective? And you see a shift. And I love that the book puts the Wisconsin case right next to the New Jersey case. It's a good contrast between the two. All right? Yeah.
Well, I was just going to ask, does it matter that the property owner brought the workers onto the land so the owner has a responsibility?
All right, let's do the facts first, and we'll get back there in a second, because the facts of this case are really interesting. So, Tamara, tell us, what are the facts of the of State v. Jacque, this New Jersey case? Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And they entered the property to say help these migrant farm workers. And the property owner refused them to see them. He let them onto the property in his office, but they never allowed them to actually go see what these farm workers were doing.
Okay, very good. All right. So has anyone ever had any experience with farm workers, migrant farm workers? I had a student last year who was a legal aid worker, so she had some stories. Anyone? So this is a really sad case. And let's put the property issues for aside 1 minute. This is a case from 1971, and it involves a farm in New Jersey. It was owned by Mr. Tedesco. and he employed these various migrant workers who came for various seasonal work. The conditions on these farms were really, really bad. Actually, if you see here, this is an article from the New York Times from 1971, and this is actually a picture of Mr. Harris and Mr. Jacque being arrested by the state policeman. Now you might ask, how was it that a reporter from the New York Times was there at the moment these two guys were getting arrested? What a coincidence, right? Harrison, what a coincidence, right? No.
Even called the state trooper didn't come out there and told him to written complaint. And I think once he got the written complaint,
Oh, you're being too generous. No, that's not what happened. But good try, Jesse. What do you think happened here? Yes, they were trying to get arrested. Everyone understand what I'm saying here? They brought the reporter because they were trying to make this into a test case. Everyone knows what a test case is? I think I've used this word before. Andrew, tell me, what's a test case?
I don't know, I guess it'd be something to like test kind of where the rule of law is going to fall.
Yes.
In a certain policy.
Exactly. They were trying to get arrested. Civil rights were often deliberately get arrested and then try to challenge the legality of the law, right? You can't challenge a law in the abstract, right? You can't say, oh yeah, that farmer is being a jerk. You need to actually, in some cases, break the law and say, my conviction was invalid. There are some ways you can actually challenge a law before it's enforced, but that's very difficult. You effectively have to show that being threatened prosecution, which is difficult to show. So these two guys, Jonathan?
Is that like the case in Connecticut where they were buying birth control or condoms?
Griswold.
Griswold.
Yes, you did Griswold and con law? Exactly right. Right? This was a deliberate test case where I think every reporter was there when it happened, but they deliberately gave the contraceptives out, and they wanted to get arrested. What was that?
Plessy.
Beautiful example. Plessy versus Ferguson, right? Homer Plessy deliberately went into the white train car to get arrested. This was a very deliberate act. And he did this because he wanted to challenge the law. He was selected as a test case plaintiff in this law, right? Brown v. Board of Education. You had students who were deliberately trying to register in a segregated school. It's a very risky prospect. I mean, these guys, they could have gotten beat up, right? If they didn't call the cops, they could have just had the farmhands come and beat the crap out of them, right? This is not for the lighthearted. This Mr. Harris and this Mr. Jacque were willing to risk their bodily safety. Okay, so here's what happened. Okay, so the Harris at the farm, and these two guys enter the property, and one of them needs to follow up with a worker who has some stitches, some suture put in his face, and they need to remove the sutures. If you don't remove the sutures, you get infection. It's really bad. Okay. Another guy was a lawyer. No surprise, they didn't want the lawyer on the property. They sent a lawyer there to check for some legal problems with one of the guys. So Harris said, "No, you can't come in. And if you want to talk to these people, you have to do it in my presence, in my office." Right. So that was the setup. And I'm going to read to you a quotation from this article in the New York Times, which you can click on later. Mr. Tedesco, the owner of the farm, said to the reporter, "I'll smash you for this. I'm going to get you for this. This is my property. You can't come in here looking around." Okay. Another farmer told the reporter, even President Nixon would not be allowed in. Another farmer, and this is perhaps where Nick was going, said that they would resort to violence to repel those who had tried to enter. Right? He said that, quote, "Either Hitler or Stalin would have known how to deal with the migratory farm workers in the camp." Okay, so this is where we're coming from. He's talking about Hitler. Okay, The farmers were using the trespass laws to keep the migrant workers out. So if you think about it, they weren't so much excluding people from the outside. They were using this power to keep inside the workers. This was a chilling weapon to maintain control. Because if you can't let outsiders come in, these people have no assistance. They can't really go anywhere. They're basically unable to work anywhere else, so they're stuck to the land for that season. On the camp, there was only one flush toilet that was crawling with flies. 7 men slept in one room. Okay, the beds had no sheets or mattress covers. The one worker was a 19-year-old who had suffered a cut on his hand while working. And there was another one, a 36-year-old, who had slashes on his face, and he had to have his stitches removed. So, and someone can do the math, they made $9 a week for this work. A family of 12 slept in one small room with bed space for 8, and there was not really running water. Okay? So effectively, the property owners here were using the law of trespass to keep people out and keep people in. Right? So you had Tejeras, who was from the Farm Workers Division. This is, Cesar Chavez. Yes, we can. Si se puede. That's where it came from. And another guy was from the Poverty Elimination Opportunity Office, Scope, whatever. Okay. So they come in with the intent of getting arrested. We know this because they have a reporter with them. It was quite deliberate. Tedesco called the cops, right? Jordan? Oh, Aaron. Jordan's there. Okay. Aaron, what did the cops initially do when they were called in? Okay. Why do you think it is that the cops didn't want to remove these two workers, or these two helpers? They weren't. Okay, and I want to make this point clear. These people did not work for the government. They worked for these nonprofit agencies that were helpful, that were funded by the government, but this is not like a police officer or a social worker. You can't, it's, generally speaking, if they have the permission to enter your land, they can without your consent, right? If you have a child that's being abused and Child Protective Services wants to come in, you can't keep them out. We'll be clear, these are not government workers, these are, nonprofit. So this is like someone from like the Salvation Army coming onto your land saying, hey, I want to come in to collect some money. So just get the frame right. So you're right. The cop said, you guys, I'm not going to arrest them unless you press charges and you demand that they give me a written complaint, right? So then Tedesco issued the formal complaint. And Alex, what happens next? Oh, no. It's just a lawsuit. Let's be very precise. This is not a lawsuit. What is the nature of this case? It's a criminal conviction. They were prosecuted by the prosecutor in the trial court, and they were convicted of the trespass statute. Okay, this is not a lawsuit. This is actually a criminal case. I think this might be the only criminal case we do all year in this course. Okay? Before we get too far, Amanda, did the prosecutor have to bring this case? Was a prosecutor obligated to bring this charge? No, how come? Yes. Okay. Everyone who says, oh, I'm going to press charges, I'm going to press, doesn't matter what you do, right? Pressing charges doesn't mean a thing. The prosecutor is vested with the discretion to bring the case or not. You'll recall when we did the Splunking Explorers case, right? One of the judges said, the prosecutor should have never brought this case at all. Why did the prosecutor have to charge this guy with murder, these cannibals with murder? They didn't have to. So there are certain checks on perhaps unjust cases. And I think the first check would have been, why bring this conviction in the first place? These guys wanted to get arrested. So actually a funny story, which is mostly true, I think, is a case of Lawrence v. Texas, right? This is a case that started right here in Houston. This was a case involving two gay men. Yeah, sodomy, exactly, involving two gay men. And the facts of this case are wildly controversial. There's actually an entire book written. We don't exactly know what happened. According to the police, they break in. They're alerted to a disturbance in an apartment. They break in, and they see two men having sex. Okay. What's really weird, and close your ears if you're prudish. One of the police officers said it was anal, and the other said it was oral sex. Those are hard to confuse. They're not the same thing. Yeah, but anyway, usually that would probably be a case where you don't bring charges. And actually, Lauren said they weren't doing anything; they were just naked. But whatever. They were actually brought in front of a Texas judge, and this part also is unclear, but I think it's true. The facts of this case are really murky. The Lawrence attorney actually asked the judge to give a fine of a certain amount, which would have allowed him to appeal to the system. Had there been no fine, there would have been really no way to appeal it. So they actually deliberately wanted to have a conviction and a fine to actually bring this to the test case. Because you'll study this when you do it in common law. Sodomy statutes were on the books, but they were never enforced. This was actually the first cases in years where it was actually being enforced. Police officers just didn't enforce the laws, like whatever. But this was a test case that made it way to the Supreme Court. So these guys wanted to have a conviction. Okay. But then something funny happened afterwards. Okay. The state did not seek to sustain the convictions. Usually when there's a conviction in court and the defendant appeals saying, oh no, this trespass statute doesn't apply to me, usually the state says, oh no, this conviction was correct, we'll defend this on appeal. Right? Chad, what happened here on appeal? What did the state not do? It's at the very beginning of the court's analysis. Let's put it this way. Did the state want to defend the conviction? No. Did Mr. Tedesco respond to the appeal? Okay. So here we have a situation where the state's not defending the conviction. What did the Judson? What did the county prosecutor do on appeal?
I think it's going to be positioned as to whether the statute reached that.
What's it in your own words? Yeah, I know when you're reading. I have the same thing in my notes.
Essentially, I guess he was just trying to figure out what the statute represented constitutional.
Not exactly. Harry? Okay. Summer? Good. 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 All he said was, our trespass statute is constitutional. He only defended the law, but he said, we take no position as to whether the defendants in this case were guilty of trespass. Isn't that weird? He's saying, there's nothing wrong with our trespass statute, but our trespass statute doesn't reach or doesn't apply to these cases. Rhiannon, what does that remind you of with the Splunking Explorers? What does that make you think of? You don't know? Ashley, you're next.
Reading exception.
Ah, reading an exception to the law based on what? Where does the exception come from? Think about it. In the case of the murder statute, they said that the murder statute can't possibly apply to the cannibals. Why? Troy? Oh, okay, go over it. Yeah, okay, still you. Yeah. No, Ashley, still. No, Troy? Yeah, basically, they have to have necessity. When you're a cannibal and you're stuck in a cave, right? You're going to eat the person regardless. You're not going to care about what the law will do to you later, right? In other words, they carved an exception to it based on the purpose of the murder regime, right? We want to deter people from committing murders, right? So here, the government, the prosecutors, effectively carved an exception, saying, yeah, generally red stick, right? You have the ultimate right to exclude from your land, but in this case, the facts are really sensitive and delicate, right? So we don't think this is a trespass. Even though they committed trespass in the literal sense of the word, they went onto another's property, right? This is black letter trespass. There's no dispute. In the facts of this case, the state wasn't willing to defend it. So I need to ask, is that Meredith? Meredith, why the heck was there a decision after this? If the government wasn't willing to defend the judgment, and Tedesco didn't even care anymore, why couldn't the court save all of your time and issue a one-sentence order saying, dismissed, judgment vacated, if no one's defending the judgment? Why didn't the court just do that? What do you think? Why would the court make you read this entire opinion? Make you suffer on your weekend?
I guess to like set precedent, to like set an example.
Yes. Yes. I could say it's a Jersey thing, which would be mostly accurate. The New Jersey Supreme Court at this time was actually fairly active in reaching social issues that were usually not the scope of the court system. But Meredith is correct, right? They were trying to set a precedent to other farm workers who hold migrant workers on their land, saying, you need to let these people onto your land. Your exclusion stick, right? Your red stick doesn't get you that far. You have to consider the welfare of the people on your land and these various government workers when you're deciding whether or not to allow people onto your land. Yes, sir.
In essence, are they basically saying that if you have other people, if you allow other people to live on your land, that you are giving them the right to include?
Ooh, that's interesting. Well, let's actually go through the court's analysis. I like yours a lot better. I think that should be a concurring opinion, which I'll probably maybe join on to. But the court's analysis was actually very weird and not very lucid, which I think was deliberate. So, Adriana, at a high level, what was the court's analysis? How did the court reach? Everyone knows what they did, right? But how did they get there? A little bit louder, please. Human values, okay. Okay, good. In the previous case, and Ashley and I had this discourse before, all property was about was the red stick owned by the property owner, right? That was it. Your right to exclude, done. This case factors in not just the property owner's values, but everything else. The welfare of these workers, the mission of these legal aid workers, right? Everything factors in to the conclusion that property rights serve human values. In other words, instead of the limitation on property being what sticks you have in the bundle, your limitations are now social welfare. Right? There's this notion that you can't use property to harm someone else. Right? There's this Latin maxim. Okay? It's sic utere tuo ut alienum non laetus. And I'll read it to you in English, so you can type it down. Sic utere. So it literally means use what is yours so as not to harm others. Or use your property in such a way that you do not damage others. Use your property in such a way that you do not damage others. Traditionally, this was how property rights were defined in the bundle. You could use your sticks so long as you didn't harm anyone else. Now you might say, And I think this is what Stephen was alluding to before. Samantha, was anyone being harmed by the way these farmers were using their trespass stick?
They weren't being harmed, but I guess they're, well,
Think about it. Yeah, you're on the right track.
no, they weren't harmed, but then they needed the health care.
Okay.
So that's why they were coming on the land.
Okay. Good. All right. So it depends what the definition of harm is, right? If we say no one was being harmed, these people were just not allowed into the land, whether they're or not didn't make a difference, that's one thing. Or the people already on the land were going to be hurt because they didn't have access to these lawyers and doctors, right? Under the common law, it was really the first approach. You might recall that our entire system of property law began from feudalism, right? Everyone knows about feudalism. Serfs, who were effectively not quite slaves, but in the same ballpark, were tied to the land, and they could not leave. They would have nowhere else to go. The master was a master of his castle and could decide who comes and who goes. What came in the 20th century was a shift in the perspective. So instead of simply looking at this red exclusion stick, you look at things like human values, right? And your right to exclude is reduced. If your right to exclude results in harming others, people on your land, then you can't do it. You know, there are lots of examples of this. Very often in the 1960s and 70s, after the Fair Housing Act was passed, a lot of landlords would still not rent to blacks and would still not, you know, sell their homes to whatever, right? This was illegal, and people could have filed lawsuits. The problem is most poor an apartment don't have the time to go file a lawsuit, and they don't have the time to go through all these court things. They just want to find an apartment. So what happened was a lot of civil rights organizations started to hire what are called testers, right? Where they would take a black man, say, okay, go to this apartment, try to rent it, and they say, no, take notes. And this was very deliberate. He had no intent of actually moving into the apartment. He wanted to just see if they would throw him away or, like, you know, tell him a lie and say, oh, it's already been rented or whatever, right? So, would the owner's right to exclude be able to keep people out of the apartments? Saying, nah, we don't want you. So civil rights laws carved a very huge hole in the right to exclude from the perspective of landlords and renting. Okay? Same on landlords and rights to evict. At common law, it was the case that if a person was 1 day late with rent, you could evict them. And not only could you evict them, you could take all their stuff and use it to pay whatever rent, sell it to use whatever paper balance they owed. That was a very harsh regime. And it was done totally self-help. You literally changed the locks on the guy or put him a padlock and kept him out. Under the modern law, the right to evict is very difficult and time-consuming. You need to go through a lot of processes. You have to give notice. You have to wait a certain number of days. Right? So this right to exclude has been decreased. So there are a lot of modern exceptions in this right to exclude. The Jacque case, which represents, you know, this robust, strong thing of my land is my castle, doesn't really carry much weight when you start looking at modern property law. You can't necessarily exclude whomever you want from your land. Okay. All right. Questions? Okay. Have a good day. I will see you on Wednesday.
Yes.